Now it's time for the power clap, Josh Mettle. Hey, Mortgage Coach community, welcome to another Tuesday interview where we bring on some of the best leaders in the mortgage industry. Sometimes I bring in outside speakers and authors, but today we have two industry insiders. We've got Tim Braheem, so I really feel needs no introduction, but one of the industry's all-time most successful mortgage professionals. I call him the GOAT. He is the greatest loan officer I've ever known. Good friend, and today he is a coach and leader in the industry. What's up, Tim Braheem?
Thanks, man. You know a lot of loan officers, so I think that maybe you're getting a little old and forgetting some of the other good ones, you know. Thanks for the accolade. Man.
Well, I mean, at a time when I was an operator and really close to what it meant to be a super thoughtful, intentional operator, I never had done a site visit with anyone that did it better than you, bro. So
thank you, man.
Maybe it is showing my age a little bit, though. We both have a little more gray hair. We also have Josh Mettle, a operator in the market today, a student, one of clients of Tim's, mortgage coach rock star, mortgage coach grandmaster, top producer, and team leader. What's up, Josh?
Glad to be here, brother. Thanks for the invite and looking forward to sharing with y'all today.
Yeah, and just so I'm sure people want to know where you're at with that bitch of view in the background. Where are you?
Yeah, we're in Costa Rica. We're down in Tamarindo. We've been on a couple-day surf excursion down here, and then we're headed down south to Santa Teresa from Tim's recommendation. And we're going to spend 5 weeks down in Santa Teresa before heading home. If the country's opened up and schools are open, then we plan to come back. If not, Colombia's not that far.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Well, as my wingman and co-host of today's call, we have Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon. Todd and I recently put on an event called the Modern Mortgage Summit. But Todd, thanks for joining this call just to help me tie it together for the mortgage coach community.
You know, it's a pleasure to be here. You know, just like you mentioned, I've learned so much early on in my career from Tim virtually back in the LTB days. And, you know, I've always said there's no one that's better scripted than Tim and so much best process out there in the industry. So to have Tim on and Josh on, I wouldn't have missed it. I appreciate the invitation, Dave.
Right on, brother. For all you new loan officers and you're going, what is LBT? That's Loan Toolbox. For those of you that know what that means, it was really the first platform that was like Google for mortgage professionals. I would say what we do on our Facebook channel was greatly influenced from what Tim did back in the day with his discussion groups and Loan Toolbox, and just an iconic training platform for mortgage professionals that Tim built, he sold, and today he services the industry as a coach and leader. But LP, that's what that stands for, guys. So before I bring these two on stage and they're going to have a Joe Rogan-like conversation around business planning, I did want to remind everybody today, December 1st, 2020 is the first day that you could get a one-year pass to the Modern Mortgage Summit. Super proud of that event. We had over 9,000 tickets sold. We had over 5,000 people log in. We had over 3,600 people at all times watching that call. In the last hour, like after 7 hours of content, it went down to about 1,500. But a super impactful event. The leaders and the people that we put on that stage were all some of the industry's most successful loan officers and most modern loan officers. So the 1 year pass to that is available as of today. So you can have access to that platform for an entire year. Todd, anything you want to add to that before we bring these two on stage and rock it out on business planning?
Well, I would just tell people where to get it. Just go to modernmortgagesummit.com and you can access it there. And it's, yeah, I think the feedback we've gotten is tremendous. We've gotten, you know, hundreds of reviews now. Our net promoter score is still 9.4. So it's, you know, you guys were the talent. You guys were the ones who gave us great feedback. So we're grateful for that. Just go to modernmortgagesummit.com and jump in to watch it and watch it again and again. And
so I've been telling people we were at a 9.2 net promoter score. So 9.4, that's even better. So thanks for everybody that responded to our poll, gave us feedback. We are going to do this again next year on 10/21/2021. So we will be promoting that sometime next year. And we're also going to do a real estate event next year. So anyways, that is available if you want the 1 year pass. Yeah, go ahead.
Just before you transition, man, let me just mention one thing. I've got 5 weeks down here, and part of my curriculum is going to be going back, rewatching the best of those presentations. I think you told me there was north of $4.5 billion of mortgage production. That was the total cumulative mortgage production for the year based on those originators. So you're talking about some of the best in the industry. And my goal is to go back and recreate kind of an action plan and a coaching curriculum for my LOs over the next 4 or 5 weeks while I'm here. So there's a real opportunity for branch managers and those leaders of other LOs to use this as content to repurpose and train our LOs as we wrap up the year and go into 2021. So just wanted to bring that up as well.
Well, thank you, Josh. I appreciate that, brother. And that is one of my goals, is to see leaders, whether you're a branch manager, whether you're a producer, and you want to be a modern mortgage platform, to use this as a training resource. I interviewed Shayla Gifford recently. It's actually available on our YouTube channel, another iconic leader in the mortgage industry. And she walks through like, hey, I have other sources of content, but literally every month I'm going to be pulling from content in the Modern Mortgage Summit and integrating it into my leadership and my training for my loan officers. And guys, that's my last word here. The best of the best, they train all the time. They train weekly. They train daily. They're always getting better. And I hope if you're watching, you're tuned into the Mortgage Coach channel, you're scheduling that training time. So guys, let's bring on the main show. Let's bring Tim Braheem on, since you are the coach, Tim. Why don't you kick it off, frame it, interview Josh, and then I'm just going to sit back and listen and learn and take notes.
Thanks. I think that Josh and I'll just kind of riff back and forth. I mean, I actually was telling him the other day when we were actually in Costa Rica together, and I was sharing with him that I've just established my 3 primary goals for 2021 as well. So I'll probably end up sharing that with you at some point in time in this call, but I think it'd be kind of interesting to hear from 2 different people, Josh and I, as it relates to the approach that we take to designing our year, and what I'd like to first start is just give you a little bit of a background. I mean, nobody was teaching business planning in the mortgage industry when I was an originator. And back in the Loan Toolbox days, I think it was about 2003, I could feel us. We'd been in business for 2 years, and I could feel us coming apart at the seams. Like energetically, I mean, just like we were dropping balls, making mistakes, things were slipping through the cracks. I could feel and sense the fatigue in myself and in my staff. And I sent my personal assistant to Barnes & Noble, and I said, go buy books on business planning and bring them back to me. And she brought me like 5 different books. And the one that I gravitated to was written by a couple of professors from the UCLA Anderson School of Business, called Growing Pains. And it's not the funnest read, I'll warn you of that. I mean, it was a grind to get through it, but it was super valuable. And we ended up hiring them to come in on a quarterly basis as our consultants and help us with strategic business planning for Loan Toolbox. And very candidly, the reason that Loan Toolbox was so successful is because we would take, on a consistent basis, time away from our business to really strategically think and plan what we wanted to create and to foreshadow what challenges may come and what we needed to do to conquer those challenges and to be successful. Fast forward, I then started teaching business planning in the mortgage industry with our Loan Toolbox business planning events, which Dave, you attended, and I think you did too, Todd. And then started my coaching company. And the backbone of our retreats in Costa Rica is that you come home with a 3-year business and life plan. And I do want to underscore the life part as well, because, you look at Josh right now, he's sitting on a beach in Costa Rica. I don't know how many beers he's had. It's only 9 a.m., but he's had to have 3 or 4. Could you corroborate that, Josh? How many have you had so far?
No, I'm pleading the 5th.
Okay. And if you think that's by accident, you're wrong. I mean, Josh conceived this idea. Well, the first time you shared it with me was when we were mountain bike riding in Utah in early July. You said, hey, I think Hillary and I and the kids are gonna plan to go live in Costa Rica for six weeks or more during the winter time. And I think that that's a really important footnote, which is that we also need to plan our life. It's one thing to just plan business, which is super important. But if we're not also planning a balanced life and a connected life to our friends and family and to ourselves, then we will run ourselves ragged. And I know that a lot of people in the industry right now have had enormously successful years financially, but yet maybe lacking a bit in some of the fulfillment in their life on a personal level. So going into 2021, we're at the ideal time right now. Like I said, I just created my three, we call them MIGs, which we'll get into maybe in a little bit, which is an acronym for Massive Impact Goals. So I've just created my three primary MIGs for 2021. This is the time to be doing it. So this is a perfectly timely call. And what I want to do now is I just want to get into it with Josh. So let's just start with, like, what's your history of business planning, bro? And what are some of the things that you think are really important for people to understand about the concept of business planning? Because I think it could be a foreign concept to a lot of people.
Well, the first thing that really resonated with me is you said time away. And what I found the most successful actions, whether it's creating a life plan or a business plan, is the first thing is you've got to get some space, especially when we're dealing with record volume. And I think we're in our, I think it's the 9th or 10th month in a row where the team will close between 150 and 250 loans. In previous years, we'd only do that in 3 or 4 or 5 months. So oftentimes we don't realize how run down we are, and to zoom out and take a look at where do I want to go in 5 years, 10 years, 60 years, whatever you want, wherever distance you want to look, you really need to get out and you need to decompress and you need to have some time away to do that. Now you can do a big time away, like, Tim's week-long trip in Costa Rica is pretty much no technology. You're offline and you are just connected. Or maybe reconnected is the right word, but we're doing meditation, we're doing yoga, we're doing physical activity, we're doing masterminding, and we are just planning a strategy for three years ahead. But the precursor to that is the time away out of the business. So I'd say the first thing that somebody needs to do is get intentional on when they're going to do that and create some space in their calendar to get away, turn off technology, detach, and then get super intentional about what you want to create. For me, my first experience to directly answer your question about long-term goal planning was when I read Think and Grow Rich. There's an original manuscript, which is much better than the watered down manuscript that came out later. So if you want to read that book, get the original manuscript. But in that book, it talks about getting so incredibly granular around who you intend to become at a future date in time. And then he talks about, going back and revisiting that with some repetition and frequency. And I that was an exercise. By the way, I still have that piece of paper. It's got to be 20 years old now. It's tucked away in the book, and I don't go back and review it probably even monthly, but a couple of times a year I pull that book out, I reread it. And what's crazy to me 20 years down the road is that literally every single detail that I put down into that future vision, I've either accomplished it already, or I am a really, really, really deep into the accomplishment of that goal. So I think for me, it's A, time away. You need some space. B, you need to create whatever that timeline feels comfortable for you, whether that's 20 years, 10 years, a 3-year plan, but there needs to be some intentionality around where you're going. And then you need to continue to revisit that and pursue those goals. I'll just leave you with a quick quote, Tim, and then you can pass it back to you. But fate is a terrible writer of where your life is going to go. In other words, if we just leave where we want to end up, the destination, to fate, who the hell knows where we're going to be? But if we have a real intentional place that we want to get to, it will serve as a light post for us and enable us to realize, hey, I've got myself off course. This isn't at all what I had intended for my life. I need to course correct and get back to the lighthouse.
So I want to extract a couple of important things that Josh just shared there for everybody that's listening, and I want to add a little bit of color commentary from my own personal experience to it. So first of all, the importance of just getting away, like really having sacred time where you strategically plan your future by design. Okay. Because if you don't design your future, you're going to be subjected to whatever the future provides you with. And here's the challenge with that. Most of us, if not all of us, are highly emotional people. And we will react to whatever is screaming at us the latest and the loudest. And oftentimes those things that we react to and choose to spend our time on are not the most strategically effective things. So if we don't have a compass, which is what your business plan really is, it's your true north. It's something that you have documented, you've strategically thought through, and you're reviewing it on a consistent basis and saying, okay, remember, here's the plan. If you don't have that, you're just going to react to whatever comes at you each day. And I'm sure that for some of you that are hearing me say this, you can really vibe with that. Like that's your life sometimes, right? You wake up and things just start coming at you fast and furious, especially in this industry, and you start emotionally reacting to it. And before you know it, another year's gone by, and another year's gone by, and another year's gone by, and then the kids have moved out of the house, and we know the story, right? So really taking the time, we just had a terrific speaker in Tucson, Arizona at our master's event, Ryan Holiday, who many of you probably know. He wrote the book, The Obstacle is the Way, and many other books, and he's a master of Stoic thinking. And Stoicism, the teachings of Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and these types of great philosophers, was about having the mastery of our emotions and the utilization of our intellect. And that's really what strategic planning is stepping back, assessing where we want to go, choosing buckets that we want to focus on. And I'm going to highly recommend that at least one of those buckets is a personal bucket, not all business. So that's big philosophy of what we teach is you got to have at least one massive impact goal in the business realm and at least one in the personal realm. And then really getting granular with it. And I'm going to tee you up on the granularity part right now, Josh, and throw it back to you. But what I want to say is that most people make a mistake of picking a goal, and I'll use the easy one. Like, I want to develop a database management strategy. I want to find a platform. I'm going to use Salesforce. I'm going to customize it. I want to have a drip campaign, or I want to implement the perfect loan process, or one of these big projects. Okay. And they just throw that out there as their goal without a real assessment on a granular level as to what does that really mean to do that exceptionally well? What does it really mean to accomplish that goal? Like, when will you put a check mark next to that goal and go, done with excellence, A+. And they get involved in that goal, and a third of the way through or halfway through, they realize they're way over their head. They totally underestimated how much human resources, how much financial resources, and they abort. They abort because they don't have the resources necessary to build it. But here's the thing that happens, that's the real trap, is that you now then start to erode confidence and trust in self, because you've made a big, hairy commitment. You didn't think through the granularity of what you were really committing to. You got engaged in it. 3 months later, you were over your skis, you aborted. And now on a deeper subconscious level, you've learned to not trust yourself, not trust your goal setting. And there's a great quote from a speaker that we had at our Laguna retreat in September his name is Jesse Itzler. And he said that he's really gotten into making sure that whatever he opts into is high reward, low aggravation. Okay. And I think that speaks to this. There's a lot of times we choose into things that we don't really realize how high the aggravation meter is going to be on that thing. And we're trapped, right? Because we either quit on a goal that was important to us, or we fulfill it and are way over our skis. So speak to that, Josh. And what do you do to make sure that you're getting granular with your goal setting?
I'm gonna answer that question. I want to just go back on a few things that you said. We tend to, at least I know it's true for myself, I tend to be able to handle the urgent things and respond to the things that I feel are urgent easier than it is for me to rest my attention on the things that are important. In other words, there's 100 problems that come my way in a day. And it's really easy for me, with my experience and the people I know and things I know how to do, to overcome those urgent problems. But if I fill my life with just firefighting the urgencies, I may never accomplish what is important. And so you touched on that, Tim. I just wanted to stress the importance that this life planning exercise, however you plan to do it, and we'll get in more detail on how Tim and I do it, but that is filled with the important. And we have to be able to do both things, handle the urgent and then reflect upon and refocus on the important, and make sure that, you know, that's the lighthouse that we're headed for. I'm gonna just tell a real quick story, and I'm gonna go back to something that Jesse Itzler said in one of our recent trainings that he attended. I wrote a birthday celebration for myself. I scripted out what I intend to do on my 100th birthday. And I'm one of those crazy people who thinks that the advancements in human longevity is going to be so crazy that if we're taking really good care of ourselves, medicine and what's going on in technology world will enable us to live much, much longer than what we think. And so I wrote out what I intended to do on my 100th birthday. It started with meditation and yoga and ended up on a surfboard and a beautiful spread on the beach with great white wine with my entire family. And I won't tell you what happens at night, but it's a beautiful, beautiful day. And the reason I share this story with you is because I'm down here in Costa Rica, and one of my commitments in that letter to myself, or that script, one of the things that I identified as important is that I wanted to learn to surf. I got down here to Costa Rica and it wasn't going well. I've got multiple joint issues. My flexibility isn't as good as it used to be. When you only surf a couple times a year, I'm not very good at it. And my son's just, you know, doing much better. And I entered this phase called the grind. So there's an important goal to me to learn to surf. It's really, really important to me. It's written into my plan. And I got into the grind of getting my butt kicked by the waves, being, you know, very reminded and intimate with the fact that I have a 43-year-old body, not a 20-year-old body anymore, all the aches and pains. And I started in my mind to go, maybe I should just give it up. Maybe I need to rewrite that 100-year birthday vision of where I want to live. And when Jesse was with us, he said, you know, it starts with excitement about it. You research a goal, you commit, you make a plan on how you're going to accomplish it. And then 95% of the journey is the grind. Those are all the things the universe is going to put in front of you to challenge you. Do you really want that goal? Are you really committed? Aches, pains, big waves, embarrassment, all of those things are the grind. And then Jesse says, if you stick with it, you'll start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You'll catch a wave. You're not as sore the second day. The instructor will tell you to change one little thing on how your feet are lining up, and you'll start to get a little bit of success. And then you get momentum, and then you achieve the goal. But most people lose their way and never make it through 95% of the journey, which is the grind. And I was experiencing that right now in Costa Rica. Glad to tell you I had the best surf day of my life yesterday with Xander. So anyway, I'm actually down here accomplishing my all-time life goals, but I had to get through some serious grind, and I'm sure there's more grind ahead.
You know, that you
I don't think
mentioned,
I answered your question, Tim. So
well, I just want to comment on something you said. You mentioned Think and Grow Rich. When Jesse was sharing that with us in Laguna, what was going through my head, I remember it vividly, was the quote from Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich, where he says, success lies just beyond the point where everyone else gives up.
Yep.
And that really speaks to that. It's you have to anticipate the grind. So when you're business planning, when you're goal setting, okay, and what I'm really hearing Josh share is you have to anticipate that there's going to be challenges. You know, if in 2021 your goal is to take your business to the next level, let's say increase your production by 25%, just to pick a hypothetical goal. it's critically important that when you're doing that goal setting, you're considering all the things that might go wrong and all the obstacles that may come up to get in the way of that goal. It could be rates spiking. It could be a teammate quitting. And it is the preparation, not just the tactical preparation for what will I do if that occurs, but maybe more importantly, the emotional preparation for what will I do if that occurs. So when it does occur, if it does occur, you're ready for it emotionally. And you're like, oh, there it is. There's that obstacle that I foreshadowed might get in my way. And I already have a plan as to how to deal with that. And you pivot and you work through it. Versus most people that don't have a plan, they're hit with these obstacles and it knocks them down and they quit. So the question, let's get specific. You just shared with us one of the, your big goal for being 100 and surfing and all those things. Share with us another goal that you have for 2021, and maybe how do you go about like structurally putting a goal together? I go back to when we were sitting in the Gottwald living room in Costa Rica 3 years ago, and I remember vividly your goal was around, becoming a teacher of the originators within your organization. You put together a really beautiful plan around that and have executed on that with such high level of strategic execution. So maybe you could walk us through, like, what's the cognitive thought process when you pick a goal? What do you put it through to create your action items and to get real specific with due dates and assigning it to people, et cetera?
Yeah, well, to your previous point, it shouldn't just be a business goal or focus. Rarely do people just succeed in business without taking care of personal and family, without burning out or really disenfranchising family members. So there's the pinwheel exercise. This is something that L360 does and some other coaching groups I've seen, and maybe we could share that, Tim. But you literally have these 8 different areas of your life, and then you go through and you score yourself. How am I doing in my love life? How am I doing physically? How am I doing in my relationships with my friends? How am I doing with my teammates? How am I doing in money? How am I doing in savings? We have these different areas, and you score yourself, and then you then plot those numbers, and then you draw a visual. And what you see, what I saw on that, in that living room, was that there were some areas in my life where I was doing really well and had exceeded even my own expectations, and some areas in my life where I was really falling flat on my face. And sometimes I think this is the ego, sometimes I can focus on those areas that I'm doing well on, and somehow turn a blind eye to the areas that I'm really not paying the attention that is due. So first, I think it's becoming clear on where are we falling short. If we're plotting this out and it looks like a triangle or it's caved all to one side, we're living kind of a one-sided life. And those are the areas that I needed to pay attention to. So when I left Costa Rica with you after that week, the 2 areas I really wanted to focus on was I wanted to increase my intimacy, my relationship, and actually I remember what I wrote, the amount of fun that my family is having. And that was the real massively important goal, was to increase the intimacy, connection, and fun that my family was having with one another. And then we get, that was the massively important goal. And then we get more tactical. Like, what does that mean? What are the action items that need to go in my calendar or in my family's calendar on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis, so that if we have 5 or 6 action items that are on a regular reoccurrence and in my calendar, we believe it will move us towards that objective. So again, early in this conversation, we talked about Napoleon Hill talking about kind of an idealistic view 20 or 30 years down the road, who we want to become. Now we're saying, okay, let's break that down into a 3-year or a 1-year. What are the massively important goals that I want to accomplish over the next 1 to 3 years? And then what are the action items that need to be in my my calendar so that I can make sure I make any progress to achieve those goals.
So what I'm going to do is I think it would be helpful for people to see a visual of a little bit of a visual of what you just described. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to pop open just so everybody knows what it is that you're looking at. So this is our proprietary business and life planning tool that we use within the Leadership 360 program. And I'm not going to take you through the whole thing, but I am going to show you a couple of tabs. And this is actually specific to me. So these are my goals for 2021 that I'm going to be working on. And you'll get an opportunity to see the granularity that Josh is talking about, and the specificity and the due dates and all of those types of things. And then I'm going to also show you a different way of tracking them that might be helpful to you as well. But before I do, what I want to share is something that I've just kind of inherently done for probably 20 years now, that I coach my clients quite frequently to do. And there are a couple of my clients who are masterful at this as well. Jay Voorhees, who Josh knows quite well, is really good about this. And I want to anchor back to 20 years ago, since I'm an old guy, and something that Tony Robbins once said. He used an acronym called LODI, L-O-D-I, and that stands for the Law of Diminishing Intent. And what the Law of Diminishing Intent states is that every moment that goes by after you've established an intention to do something, the less the chance is that you will actually execute on doing it. Okay, so the peak, in other words, the peak level of intensity and enthusiasm when you pick a goal to do something is in that moment. Okay, because that's when you're feeling it. There's a reason that you picked it. And if you wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks to take action on it, you are decreasing the probability of you actually taking action. So one of the things that I've always done is when I've decided, let's just pick as an example, traveling, okay, because I think it's a good one to anchor into. If you have a goal for next year to take 2 vacations with your family, my strong recommendation is to pick the locations this week, anchor them or schedule them in your calendar for the 2 weeks that you're going to do it next year. Book the flights now. And I don't want to hear, well, COVID's an uncertainty and all that. Book the flights now, get travel insurance. You can get your money back. Book your hotel now and anchor it in. And here's why, because there was a point in time in my life where I could tell you up to 12 months into the future, everywhere I was going on vacation, not because I dreamed about it, but because it was already booked. It was in my calendar. The hotels were paid for. I had the airline tickets in hand. And it was because I knew myself well enough to know that if I make a commitment and I cement it, okay, it's highly unlikely that I'm going to abort. Something big is going to happen in my life for it to change. Now, I coach a woman who right now privately, and she had a goal as an example of wanting to learn how to play tennis. And she started to take a couple of tennis lessons and she really liked it. And I said, Lisa, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to your tennis instructor and I want you to give him the amount of money that it would cost for you to take tennis lessons from him for the next 6 months. I want you to pay for those lessons 6 months into the future. And I want you to schedule into your calendar the day of the week that you'll have tennis lessons. Why? Because I know that she's going to stick with it if she cements it in and makes the commitment concrete. So let's take a look at this for a second. Open up my screen. So these are right down here. You see my MIGs, okay? And what MIGs stand for is massive impact goals. And we have, a whole library of goals and action items in our repository within our business and life planning tool. But I've just selected 3. Why 3? Because anything more than that, you're going to paralyze yourself. And depending upon the complexity of the goal, okay, you're going to maybe even only want to have 2 goals going into 2021. It's much better that you pick less goals and accomplish them halfway through the year and say, shit, I got 6 more months to the year. I'll pick another goal or 2 than it is for you to pick several goals, say 4 or 5, and come up short. because again, we want to really be focused on the relationship that we have with ourselves and how well we trust ourselves and whether or not we do what we say we're going to do. That's a very important component to business and life planning, is the execution and the exceeding of your objectives. So this first goal is for me to create and implement a healthy living routine so that I have an amazing 2021. And there's a whole bunch of different line items in here. There's one in particular that I want to call to everyone's attention in a moment, but let me just say this, that you notice here in the column of who, these are the people that will be executing on the goal. Now, that's because this is a personal goal, you see pretty much only my name with the exception of my assistant Doreen in there. You see the due date as to when the goal would be accomplished. So let's just see, look at this one for a minute. Schedule into my calendar a minimum of 2.5 months vacation for 2021 by no later than December 31st of 2021. Book flights. So it's specific. I'm very specific here. I got to book it in my calendar and I got to book the flights. When is it due? It's due on the 31st of this coming month. So in the next 4 weeks, I've got to have all my flights booked. It speaks to what I was talking about earlier. Now, let's look at a goal or an action item, I should say, like this one here. Practice yoga a minimum of 3 times a week for 45 minutes. Who's going to do it? Me. Notice that it says ongoing. Okay, so there's 2 different kinds of action items, and I think it's important for everybody to understand this. There are action items that have a concrete finish date, i.e. booking those vacations. There are action items that are an ongoing, repetitive experience, so they don't ever have an end date to them, and those need to be tracked. If you want to have success in the execution of your business and life plan, so let's just say hypothetically, you're going to call 5 clients a day in your past client database to say hello, okay? That's an ongoing action item. And if you don't track it, you're going to run a great risk of blowing it off and surrendering to whatever is screaming at you latest and loudest, as I mentioned to you before. So how do we track it? Well, over here, I have a goal tracking log, okay? And what this tells me, practice yoga, minimum of 3 times a week for 45 minutes. The weekly commitment is 3 times. And every time I practice yoga, I go ahead and I put a check mark in here. So I didn't do it the last 2 days, okay? And if you do this, you can, and the way that this is set up is it's a scorecard. So I can really monitor my success and see where I'm doing well, see where I'm coming up short. If you look at this one here, continue my moratorium on Facebook. I haven't been on Facebook since June. Best decision I ever made in my life. Oh my God, talk about getting your energy back and getting away from the negativity. So I'm going to continue to throw a checkbox in there every single day that I'm not on Facebook. Okay. So I wanted to share a little bit about that. Josh, you want to speak to anything that I just shared? Does that bring up anything for you?
Yeah, again, the importance here is to shift focus. As crazy as our business has been, all of us have been, to the great extent, the majority of us have been brought into the things that are urgent, because there's so much urgent and there's so much chaos that's going on with the COVID reports and with all of the other craziness that's gone on in the mortgage market. It gets really, really easy to get into a super reactive basis, that we wake up, we just anticipate the next batch of chaos coming our way, and every ounce of our energy and our intention goes on to solving those problems in that day. And then we medicate or do something to wind down at night. And then we wake up and go right back to our devices, check our Facebook status, check the news, see how high the COVID reportings are, see what happened in the mortgage market, and then go back to fighting fires. And what I think is important to take away from this is you don't have to live like that. You can take an intentional course on what is important to you and get those into your schedule, and you can start to focus more on the important than the urgent. And I'm in the camp that we might see, lower interest rates in 2021 than we did in 2020. It's possible. So how long are we going to live in this kind of state of reactive chaos before we say enough's enough? Like, I got to love myself enough to say, I'm just not going to live like this anymore. I'm going to get really clear on what are the, like Tim said, 2 or 3 goals that if I accomplish these things for 2021, I really don't care what else happens. And once you've arrived at that sort of clarity, for me, I know it allows me to look at a certain something that I used to look at as, really important and urgent, not important, excuse me, something that I used to look at as really urgent. And now I can just go, I'm going to let that go. That doesn't even warrant my energy today, because I've already accomplished the things that I know are going to get me to accomplish my massively important goals. I've already accomplished the really important things. I can let go of some of this inconsequential, seemingly urgent stuff and continue to live my life. And it's a lot better experience to be living in that space.
Really well said. I just want to anchor in one more time, like another specific example for people, just so you can get a feel for this. And let me just regress for a moment, say, just to get super tactical, pick a day right now on your calendar where you block the day and you go somewhere quiet where you're not going to be interrupted to think about your goals for 2021. Pick one day, carve out the whole day, turn the cell phone off, get contemplative. I'm going to ask you in a minute, Josh, if there's any suggestions you have to that. Maybe you initially start by listing out, 3 to 5 goals that you really want to accomplish for your business in 2021, and a couple of life goals. Okay, then you're going to take that list and you're going to really synthesize it down into what's going to be high payoff, low aggravation, what's going to give me a fighting probability of success, so I feel really good about myself and I feel like I accomplished something very meaningful in 2021. You're going to pick at least one personal, one business, and then you're going to chunk it down. And you're going to get really strategic and granular as to what are all the things that need to happen for this to get executed as an A+. So let's take a look at an example of that. And I just went into our goals and action items repository, which there are hundreds of goals and thousands of action items. Literally, this has been built up over a 9-year period. It's riding on the heels of all the people that have come through our program. And I picked this goal here because I think it would resonate with people. Put a recruiting, right here, develop hiring and training process for new employees so that we were prepared to hire when needed. Okay, so I think that there are a lot of people that are looking to hire right now, and many of you don't have a process. So let's see how granular this gets. That's the goal. Look at all the action items. Okay, number 1, create company organizational chart and develop a list of positions that we need to hire for. Okay, who's going to do it? When's it going to be done by? Number 2, put together the job description of the various positions, including disc profile and job functions that they will handle. How many times have you made a hire, folks? How many times have you made a hire and you don't even have a job description for them? How many times have you made a hire and you didn't do a personality assessment on the person? So you don't even know who they really are when they start working with you, and then you find out later. Okay, how many times have you hired somebody because, like me, I did this before when I first started, hired somebody because you liked them, found out they're really not a good worker? Well, that's all symptomatic of not having a plan, of not strategically thinking through everything that needs to take place. Create a job posting for each position and determine the sites that jobs will be posted to. Obtain training manuals from Jay Voorhees, who is in our program. So let's skip that one because you wouldn't have access to him. Review and edit the manuals that require. So what is the training manual? Like, that's another thing is, I'm gonna toss it to you right now, Josh, but like, how many times have you made a hire and it's day 1 and the person walks in the building for the first time and you don't really have a plan for them to train them? So Josh, go ahead and speak a little further to this stuff.
Yeah, the things that are coming to mind is come up with 2 or 3 massively important goals. What are the things that if nothing else happens, if other things fall off the edge of the table, but these 2 or 3 things happen, your business and life, 2021 is going to be a success for you. Then we need to, and as Tim said, put that through the filter. Is this a high payoff, low aggravation activity, or at least is it a high payoff, high aggravation? Are you intentional that you're willing to go through that level of aggravation because the payoff is so freaking time. And then chunk it down to what are the 3 to 7 things. Tim, maybe you would say more, but in most of my action items, I would have between 3 and 7 items that I needed to do in order to have that goal become a reality. That'd be the second step there. And then the third step after the action items is create some sort of accountability. So one of the things that's worked so well in our group is that every 2 weeks to 30 days, there is a 30 to 60 minute, depending on the frequency, trio. So 3 of us come together, we share our massively important goals, we share our action items, and then we connect as colleagues, as coaches to one another, and we check up. Tim, how you doing? Are you hitting the yoga? What's standing in your way? Did you take the step that you said you were going to do, and did you pay for all of those and schedule them a year in advance, and then tell your assistant, don't schedule me around these dates. Like, we support each other. So making those massively important goals and the action items public, and having a forum to collaborate and to help you overcome the obstacles, like Tim said earlier. If you're going to change your life in 2021, know that there is going to be challenge. Know that 95% of the journey is going to be the grind. But if you keep at it and keep at it, one day that yoga session is going to be pure bliss because your body takes to it, or whatever the goal is. So I would make sure that you add collaboration around that and accountability around that. Get buy-in from your spouse. That's another big one that will help you. And then just know going in that it's not going to be easy. You're going to encounter setbacks. You're going to look up and go, oh my gosh, I've fallen off the wagon. Now what do? You re-engage and you get rolling and you go, okay, great, made it through the grind. Let's keep going.
Yeah, well said. And you hit on something that I completely missed. So thank you for bringing it up, which is the accountability piece, right? And the support. Like, I mean, most of us are not there's a reason that personal trainers exist, right? I mean, most of us need some accountability, some structure, some support. And I really encourage you, whether it's through private coaching, that you're coaching with someone that's going to check in with you on a consistent basis, or just even forming a team of colleagues if you have them in your office, and agreeing that you guys you're gonna check in with each other. So as an example, what Josh is talking about, I mean, within our program, we break up in these teams of 3. I'm actually on a team this semester, so I have my first call with Scotty Evans and Ron Poborski on Thursday, and it'll be for an hour, and I've shared my massive impact goals with them, and they've shared theirs with me, and we're going to be showing up and helping support each other. And one of the things that I've become a big student of is the subject matter of fear. And we've talked a lot about it on our retreats. And, is fear a good thing? Is fear a bad thing? Well, it's both. I mean, in my estimate, fear can really cripple us and curtail activity and growth, but fear can also be transmuted and become a friend. And what I want to talk about very briefly is, how do you use fear as your friend? Because what we're talking about here, let's not lose sight of the fact that what we're talking about here, gang, is behavioral change. We're talking about doing something different than what we do right now, marketing ourselves in a different way, living our life in a different way, and as it relates to balance, or developing relationships with referral partners, maybe when we haven't had success in doing so in the past. And don't underestimate the fact that when we're seeking to change a behavior, that we are going to butt up against fear, whether it be fear of rejection, fear of it not working out, fear of the discomfort of a different lifestyle, fear of surfing, okay, whatever it is. And what Josh is really talking about when he talks about that light at the end of the tunnel, when he catches that wave and rides it down the line and feels the energy of that wave pushing him and his board, okay, now he's transmuted the experience from the fear of falling to the fear of not having that feeling again. So if the fear of the change of behavior is greater than the result, you won't do it. So the key thing is that we need to anchor into the fear of stagnancy, the fear of complacency, the fear of what will happen if we don't act, if we don't take action. And I'm going to hit you between the eyes with this right now, because we've been doing a lot of masterminding on this within our coaching program. Things are changing, and I think you know that. And this is one hell of a run that we're on right now. But when it's over, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard when it's over, because margins are going to compress again. Technology has taken over in a big way. The process is getting streamlined. There are some behemoths out there that are going public. They're going to be funded with a ton of money, like Quicken, et cetera. What are you doing right now to make sure that when this is over, you're not screwed? And I ask that question because that's your fear point. Put yourself 18 months into the future, 24 months, wherever it is, and ask yourself what life will look like if you're doing 3 loans a month again, or 5 loans a month again, or fighting hard to try to scrape a deal from a real estate agent, which you haven't had to do in a long time. That becomes the catalyst, the motivator to establishing goals right now and making change now, not after it's too late, not once it already happens. Now's the time to strategically plan in that way.
Yeah, Tim, to your point, when Jesse was with us, what he shared was remember tomorrow. And, he talked about this experience where we could all get together tonight and do 6 shots of tequila and put some really cool pictures up on social media. But remember what, like, if we took that action. So to your point about using fear to your advantage, when we create those massive impact goals, it's written such as, I'm going to create more fun, connection, and intimacy in my family the year ahead, so that, and then we put a so that frame on it, so that by time my kids leave to college, I've created a bond that will last a lifetime. And it's in how we create those massive impact goals and the why behind those goals. And then we use fear to our advantage. In other words, if one of my action items to create intimacy and fun was to do a Green River float trip with my son for 3 days, the fear that's going to come up is, oh shit, there's no cell phone reception on the Green River, and I'm leaving in the busiest month of my career for 3 days with no cell phone reception. It was actually 4 days with no cell phone reception. That's a real fear. I don't know about you, but that was a fear I had to overcome. And the tool that I would use today to overcome that fear is, okay, that's scary, but is my kid in 8 years leaving my house and me failing to make a connection with him that's going to last the rest of our lives? Which one of those 2 things is scarier? Is it the fear of today, losing cell phone reception, or the fear of tomorrow, that I'm going to fail on what's really, truly important to me?
Really beautifully said. And I just want to, acknowledge you, man, because, in the 3 years, I guess it's been that we've known each other now, 2.5 years, something like that. Like, I see who you are as a father, and I see who you are as a husband, and I see who you are as a leader, and your intentions that you fulfill are really beautiful. And having had an opportunity to get to know your kids and to see how connected you are with them and how much fun you have with them, it's really admirable. And I'm really happy for you, and I'm happy for them, happy for Hillary as well. And the thing that's really great about it is it's by design. Like, it's very intentional on your part. I see it. Like, I see you confront fear. I mean, you could be easily making up all kinds of excuses as to why you can't do those things. But yet, when we went mountain bike riding in July, you were there at the trailhead at 3:30 with Aria, right? I mean, I'm sure you could have made an excuse as to why you needed to stay at the office until 5 o'clock, but you didn't, because you have a plan, and you're very intentional with that plan, and you've anchored into what's important to you. And I think that's a really important lesson for everybody to hear. And I see Dave and Todd popping back on the screen, so I'm going to turn it over to them. And Josh, it was a real pleasure, man, just going back and forth with you this morning. And I hope that everybody that watched here got something good out of it.
Well, guys,
Thanks.
this
Appreciate
this
the kind words and the coaching as always.
guys, this could clearly turn into a 3-hour Joe Rogan interview if we let you guys keep going. And I think that would be actually pretty cool to really go long format. I always used to think doing an hour call was a long time, and then Jocko Willink said, "No, you could do like a 3-hour podcast. Joe Rogan could do like a daily 2-hour." And dude, you two could go forever, and I'd listen to it all day long, and I know the community would. So, guys, there's been a lot of takeaways from this. Personally, I've heard a lot of coaches and leaders talk about life planning. I've gone through life planning. I do life planning, but that 100-year vision, like when I hit 100, documenting your plan, I'd never heard that, Josh, and I love that. I'm personally going to put some documentation around that. I personally am going for 120, but 100 is the date that I'm gonna write something up on that, brother. So couple things. One, Tim, I want to make sure anybody that wants to connect with you as a coach, follow you. Everything that Tim Braheem puts out is just excellence. His YouTube channel. When Tim posts something on YouTube, check it out. So for people that want to learn from you, follow you, maybe get coached by you, what's the best way for them to follow up?
Just go to our website, which is Performance Experts. And this will give you an idea as to how technologically. So let me just type in the URL here just to make sure that I don't give you.
We'll get it in. We'll get it in. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put a link to Tim's webpage. If you're watching this in Zoom, we'll get a link in here. Tim, you don't need to. Well, he did do it. No, Robert did it for you, so we're good to go on that.
Performance-experts.com. It's still the same. I didn't know if we had changed it. And we have some coaching availability right now for a few spots. I think maybe 3, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that I see here that there have been several people that have asked about the business and life planning spreadsheet. I'm so sorry. Like I give away a lot of intellectual property for free, as I think Dave could attest to, but that's not one that we give away for free. It's such an important backbone of our program. And but if you would like to explore coaching with us, we would then be able to talk to you about being able to have access to that. And I kind of feel even weird saying that because I'm just so used to just giving things away, but that's just one that I can't. The other people on my team would be quite angry with me. So
I respect that. And guys, that's what leaders do. They know when to say yes. They know when to say no. And I respect that, Tim. And for anyone that asked for that, well, I think there's pure gold in that document. I think there's pure gold in you creating your own life planning tool. I interview a lot of coaches, and I think it's good to use their tools, but I also think it's good to create your own. Also, Win by Noon, guys. We've got the founder of Win by Noon on here. It's a fantastic plan that will help you plan and document at a high level. And it will also help you turn that into tactical details. And I think hopefully you get the takeaway you got to see someone who has dedicated their life to planning personally, dedicated their life to planning others, and just to get a little sneak peek into the level of detail and what he does and how he does it. I mean, guys, that's the gold, is to see the level. When we did the Modern Mortgage Summit, I was inspired, Tim, because back in the day when you used to do those events, the amount, like, you would document every minute. And dude, we documented every minute of that plan. We had a spreadsheet and the Modern Mortgage Experience. There was not a single minute that was not accounted for and on a spreadsheet. And I actually don't think I would have done that had it not been for your mentorship and the relationship we've had, bro. So Todd Bookspan, we want to make sure you get to share any takeaways you have, any, kind of Win by Noon perspectives you have for the community. Anything you have to say, brother?
Man, that was pure gold, Tim and Josh. Thank you guys so much. It just brings me back, like I say, to those Lone Toolbox days, because before I could afford a coach and I was brand new in the industry, really, Tim, you're the one who gave me that vision and that guidance. So it's just fun to watch the two of you guys wrap through it. I think the key things for you guys, the word I love was the intentionality. I mean, I loved how Tim acknowledged Josh for his growth and what he shared. I mean, think about that, just that brief moment. Who do you need to look at their life and give some acknowledgement to? But in the end, it really boils down to the one thing that they both said, which is schedule the day to write your plan, schedule your day to unplug and do it. And right now, you already heard it. You guys are so busy. And if you don't do it and put a by when date, you're just at risk of not getting it done. And as Dave said, you don't need any fancy tool. You just need a book and a piece of paper and get out there and do it. I would encourage you. It's a life-changing thing when you can actually look at your business and your life and schedule out what it's going to be. And I love the idea of a MIG over the next 3 years. And anyone who needs someone to hold them accountable, just shoot me an email at todd@winbynoon.com with the date that you're going to do it. And I'll make sure that I follow up with you afterwards to make sure that you did it.
So guys, I'm going to share 30 seconds. Josh Mettle, I'm going to give you the closing thought. But here's my closing thought, guys. Your confidence fuels your energy. And I think every single person on this call, you can upgrade the time you spend in life planning. These guys, just hearing them talk, sharing tactically what they do, like upgrade whatever you're doing. You know, whatever you did last year, do better, and you'll have confidence. You know, if you aren't going to execute on all 3 goals, execute on one over the next 30 days more, and you'll be more confident. And that just becomes a snowball rolling down the hill. So I hope you got value from this. Josh Mettle, how do you want to wrap it up and close it out? Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, last comment is, I think rarely do our financial gains exceed our personal development. And we've had a year where maybe that rule doesn't apply. Maybe a lot of us had financial gains that are greater than our personal growth. But I think true up pretty darn soon. And there's a couple of gals that I coach that have mentioned to me in coaching sessions that they're going to get to the exercise. They're going to get to taking care of and nurturing and loving on themselves when they get to closing 12 loans a month. And I always try to reframe it to them and say, I challenge you to really analyze that assumption you've made, that once you close 12 loans a month, you'll be worthy to take care of yourself. And I would ask you to just write this down in reverse order. And instead of when I start closing 12 loans a month, I'll start exercising, eating right, doing yoga, whatever it is to take care of myself and develop personally, to when you start doing those things that you need to do to love on yourself, you will start closing 12 loans a month. So make sure that we're not just living one-sided. Focus on your personal growth, and the rest will take care of itself.
Love it. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for the hour of value. Tim Braheem, brother, it's always great to see you. Josh Mettle, thank you. Todd, thank you. And everybody who tuned in and gave us your attention and your time, we appreciate you guys. This call is a
Thanks
wrap.
for having us.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Hey,
You guys.